أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد والثناء لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيب إله العالمين سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أولاده المعصومين ولا سيما بقية الله في الأراضين. My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am very happy to have this opportunity to talk to you today. And I hope that this lecture and our discussion together would be an opportunity for us and a reminder for all of us. And I hope that Allah the Almighty put some good things in my tongue so that I can share it with you. So what I have decided to talk about today, in my opinion, according to what I have studied and according to what I have researched, is one of the most important, most beautiful, and one of the most practical things that we have in the Islamic teachings in general. But I want to start with some introductory points. First, you know that this month is month of getting closer to Allah, and it is an opportunity for all of us that is not like any month, any other month, in giving us the greatest blessings and the greatest opportunities to make us closer to God, and also to somehow show us the right path, and also an opportunity to get closer to Allah with some certain ways. And one of those special ways that we have in order we have to get more proximity to Allah the Almighty is through prayer. So I have decided to talk about this great means for getting actually more proximity to Allah and achieving better levels of perfection. First point is that when we look at the Holy Quran, we see that there is a chapter in the Holy Quran which is unique. The way that this chapter starts is unique in some points, and I will explain how it is unique. It doesn't happen in any other chapter of the Quran, and that chapter is Surah Ash-Shams. In Surah Ash-Shams, Allah the Almighty starts the chapter with some oaths, not only one oath, or two oaths, or three oaths. Actually, he makes 11 oaths in order to make one important statement after all of these repeated oaths, one after the other. And this style, this way of starting a chapter is unique in the Quran. It does not happen in any other chapter in the book of God. So let me just start, let me recite this chapter, the starting verses, and then say what God wants to say after all of these oaths that he makes one after the other. He says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والشمس وضحاها والقمر إذا تلاها والنهار إذا جلاها والليل إذا يغشاها والسماء وما بناها والأرض وما طحاها ونفس وما سواها فألهمها فجورها وتقواها. These are the oaths. By the sun and its spreading light, and by the moon which follows the sun, and by the day when it manifests the light of the sun, and by the night when it covers the day, and by the sky and the one who has built it, and by the earth and the one who has expanded it, and by the soul and the one who created it and gave order and perfection to it, and inspired to it both wrong and right. These are the oaths, 11 oaths that has come at the at the actually start of this chapter. And this is very interesting. It must be something very important. We do not, it is not part of our discussion to explain the oaths themselves and why Allah the Almighty has chosen these things to make them a subject of oath. That's a separate discussion. Maybe we can have it later. But the point is that Allah the Almighty makes these oaths to say something important. It must be something very unique that God makes all of these important statements, all of these oaths, and then says what he wants to say. He could just easily say he could simply say what he wanted to say without making any oaths. But when Allah the Almighty wants to show, to manifest the importance, significance of something, he makes oaths. But when he wants to make something to make it very clear that this is extremely significant, he makes more than one oath. And in this case, which has the record in the Quran, he makes the largest number of the oaths one after the other. And after all of these things, he makes that important statement. He makes that important sentence, which is one of the foundational beliefs that we have in the Islamic system, and also one of the foundational practical statements that we have in our religion. And that is, after all of these oaths, he says, the one who purifies the soul will receive salvation. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. The one who purifies the soul will receive salvation. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. But the one who polluted it with sin and corruption became the hopeless failure. So all of those oaths were an introduction to let the listener and the receiver of this revelation and all of us who are reading the book of God understand that this is something very important. So we come to the conclusion that without purification of the soul, according to this verse and according to a lot of other verses of the Quran, we come to this very important principle in Islamic system of thought and Islamic practice, actually, that without purification of the soul, without self-purification, it is impossible to achieve salvation. So, unlike some other religions that they put salvation based on some other standards. For example, in Christianity, it's a totally different system, and they put salvation on faith to Jesus Christ, peace and blessing of God upon him. And every religion has its own system. But in Islam, salvation has its own system. Achieving salvation is very clear, is mainly based on the activities and the efforts of a person himself. Of course, God will help, and also purification of the soul. This verse clearly says that without purification of the soul, it is impossible to achieve salvation. And as I said, God could simply say, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. The one who purifies the soul will achieve salvation, but he adds all of those oaths in order to clarify the importance and the significance of that. So the first point is that, as I mentioned, without taking complete care of our souls and without purifying it, it is not possible to achieve any level of salvation. And in this universe, in this world that we are living, there are many things that do not need any type of changing. They do not need to improve themselves. They do not need to purify themselves. Everything that has been created, the things that have been created by God, usually or mostly, or maybe most of them, or maybe all of them, they usually do not need to change themselves. They have been created as they are, and that state of creation is the best way that they could have. For example, the oceans, the mountains, the animals, the seas, everything, the sky, the suns, the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything that we see in this world, they have been created as they are. And that state is the best state for them, and no one expects them to change themselves. But when it comes to the human being, this is the big difference. When it comes to the, and actually for them, for the things other than human being, it is better not to change a lot, because when we human beings start changing the things from the original state, in many cases, it makes a lot of problems. You know, all of these environmental problems that we have in today's world are mainly because we have changed the things in an improper way. So changing the things is not expected from those things themselves, and even from us, it should be based on some principles. But when it comes to the human being, everything is different. The human beings are valuable for many different things because they are changeable. Not only changeable, actually there is nothing in the world which is changeable as much as the human being. We can improve ourselves, we can change ourselves, we can purify ourselves, and no other entity in the world is actually changeable as much as we are. And then the second point is that no other entity, no other thing in the world actually needs to change as much as we do. And no other entity and no other creature in this world has such a significant difference between when it has changed or improved and when it has not changed. So there is a huge distance between the two different states of these of us human beings. When we have improved ourselves and when we have not improved, the difference is a lot. So this change, this improvement that in the religious thought we call it purification of the soul, is the basis of everything, and it's the most important foundation for salvation. Briefly speaking, we have one way for eternal salvation, and that is self-improvement and purification of the soul. So this was my first important point that I wanted to clarify. The second point is, what is the way? What is the practical method for self-purification? The most important question, the most common question that comes when we talk about mysticism, when we talk about the way to salvation. Okay, what is the way? Tell me a way that I can actually achieve that purpose of self-purification, so I can achieve salvation in my life, in this world and in the other world. And you know, to answer this question, different religions, different faith traditions, different denominations have used different methods and different ways. They have, and most of these ways that are recommended or prescribed by different religions and denominations and faith traditions and schools of thought require a lot of hard work and effort, and that's okay. And actually, every good thing actually needs a lot of hard work. But what I want to say is that according to the Islamic teachings, we can come to the conclusion, we can understand that there is a way here which is somehow a type of shortcut, a beautiful way, which is very effective among all the methods that we can practice in order to achieve self-purification and therefore achieve salvation. There are many different ways, there are many different methods. الطرق إلى الله بعدد أنفاس الخلائق. The ways to God are as many as the number of people actually, but still there are certain methods, and among these methods there is one method which is very effective, very beautiful, very lovely, and very much easier and more convenient than the other ways, and it's more effective, and that way is to become intimate with Allah the Almighty. I mean, by intimate, I mean a special type of relationship that a person gets close to Allah, like a very close friend. I will explain it more. The late Ayatollah Bahjat has a sentence which is very important, and that is what inspired me to all of this actually lecture that I'm giving here. You know, he has that, maybe some of you have heard this sentence. He says, I just skipped the Farsi part. He says, all the negative traits are caused because of our lack of proper understanding or proper knowledge about God. So all the negative traits are actually a result of not having proper knowledge about God. And what solves this problem? He says, become intimate, and actually intimacy with the one who gets closer to his friends. I mean, the Lord, can solve this problem. That lack of knowledge can be solved by becoming intimate to Allah. And then he continues, he says, if the humankind know that God in every situation is more beautiful than any other beautiful thing in the world, the person will never be separate from intimacy to Allah the Almighty. End of quote. So in order to get, so according to this, for us to solve that problem of being, actually to solve that problem of not having proper knowledge of God, which is the main source of all the different problems and negative traits that we have, we need to get close to Allah. We need to become intimate with Allah. And what is a way to become intimate to Allah? The same way that we become intimate to people. This is my answer, actually. You know, the way that we become intimate to Allah in somehow, one way is to use the same method that we use to get closer and intimate with other people, one of the main ways, and that is talking to him. When we want to get closer to a person, the first and the most common way, the easiest and the simplest way that comes to the mind of a person at the beginning is to start talking to that person. Is that right? We talk to that person so that we become closer to the person, and we start a communication with that person. The more we talk to a person with kind words, with proper words, the more intimate and close we get to the person. The idea is the same with regards to God. So this notion of conversation that is very important in our personal social activities, and we start a conversation with the people whom we love, works very well when it comes to our relationship with Allah the Almighty. So briefly speaking, the best way and that shortcut way to get closer to Allah and to have an intimate relationship with Allah is to talk to the beloved God, is to have conversation with Allah the Almighty day and night with beautiful words. So, and what is it? What am I talking about? I'm talking about the concept that we have all heard about, but some of us do not know that it's so general, it's so inclusive. And that concept is dua, prayer. Prayer in its general meaning, or dua, is actually the proper meaning of that. The true meaning of dua is just calling and talking to Allah the Almighty. And according to what I said, this general meaning of dua is the exact method that we need in order to get closer to Allah, in order to have an intimate relationship with Allah and achieve intimacy with Him. And then eventually, because of that intimacy, our negative traits will be resolved and self-purification will be achieved. This is something very interesting. And according to Islam, and especially according to the school of Ahlul Bayt, dua itself is important. It is so effective and constructive. And we should not think that if we talk to Allah in a very intimate way, with our own language, and talk to Him about anything that we love, Allah the Almighty will not like it. No, that's not the case. the best way to talk to Allah is to open our hearts and talk to Him so that we can get close and intimate to Him. We just open to Allah day and night. That's actually a type of dhikr, remembering Allah. Because when we remember Allah, remembrance has many examples, but one of the very best examples is that when you remember Allah, start talking to Him with your own language, with whatever exists in your own heart. Just open your heart, talk to Him day and night, while you are sitting, while you are lying down, while you are walking, while you are driving. That is the best and the greatest, or the most, let's say, comprehensive meaning for dua. Because dua is not only, okay, we have done our prayer, and after the prayer or during the prayer, we do some certain du'as. No, that is one example of the dua. The general meaning of dua includes any type of conversation that we have with Allah the Almighty. And let me bring an example that is called interlocutor of Allah, Kalimullah. Maybe you know who I'm talking about. It's the Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He is called Kalimullah, interlocutor of Allah, the person who speaks a lot with Allah. And this is one example in the Quran, Surah Taha, verse number 17. You know, Musa alayhi salam, one interesting characteristic about him was that he loved to talk to Allah about different things, about normal things that sometimes we think that these are not things to talk about with Allah, but Musa didn't think that way. In Surah Taha, verse number 17, Allah the Almighty says that He asks Moses in the first encounter that he had in that special place in the mountain, وَمَا تِلْكَ بِيَمِينِكَ يَا مُوسَى, and what is that in your hand, O Moses? And then Musa could easily say, that's my staff. That's my staff, and I just use, and that was enough to say that's my staff. But he starts a conversation with Allah. He said, it is my staff. I lean upon it. He starts explaining to God what staff is used for. That's so interesting. He said, it is my staff. I lean upon it, and with it, I beat down leaves for my sheep. And it has other uses for it. And I have other uses for it. So it starts a type of, a longer conversation, because he just loved to prolong his conversation with his Lord. This is a good example of dua and actually opening the heart and talking to Allah. The result of this method is intimacy with Allah. The reason that Moses alayhi salam talked to God so much in different ways, and even in the things that are sound to be very regular things, is that this is a lesson for all of us. This method brings intimacy, closeness to Allah. And now let's talk about beauty and the importance of dua when it comes to practice. And when Allah the Almighty wants to encourage us to dua and to prayer in its general form. I'm not talking about ritual prayer or salat, general prayer. And that is verse number 186 of chapter Baqarah, which is the second and the largest chapter of the Quran. And that is actually the most important verse that we have regarding dua in the Quran. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ فَلْيَسْتَجِيبُوا لِي وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ. This is amazing. This is one of the loveliest verses in the Quran, and it has some unique features that I will mention, just very few of them. Allama Tabatabai explains and talks more extensively about this chapter, about this verse. If you like to know more about it, you can just refer to Al-Mizan or other interpretations of the Quran, commentaries of the Quran. Allama makes 8 points that, because I don't have time to mention all of those 8 points, I will just mention 1 or 2 of them. First, one different thing about this verse, unlike many other verses that Allah the Almighty talks about different things, is that, or when Allah the Almighty wants to talk about himself, in this very verse, there is a difference. And that difference is that the basis of the conversation, the basis of this verse is based upon first person singular. In many verses of the Quran, when Allah the Almighty wants, for example, especially when he wants to point out his power or majesty, he says, nahnu, we. But here, he wants to show his closeness and beauty and intimacy with people. So he says, I. And very interesting, you know, in this one line verse, Allah the Almighty uses the term I in different forms in Arabic language 7 times. 7 times he says I, not we, because we has another type of, let's say, meaning or connotation. He does not use we in this verse. He just says I because of the connotation that it has. And then another thing that he says is that, let me just read the verse for you again. And when people ask you about me, so he talks to the prophet, when people, oh the prophet, when people ask you about me, tell them that I am close. So he uses I repeatedly, but I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. He does not say, tell them that I am close to them. That's the point. He says, when people ask you about me, I am close to them. He says, oh prophet, actually it's something like this, oh the prophet, just stay aside. He starts talking to people directly here. When people ask you about me, I am close. It does not include any qul, it does not include any say or tell them. He just says, when people ask you about me, I am close. I am close. He starts talking directly to the people. I am close. أجيب دعوة الداع. This is the second point that Allama Tabatabai says. There is no intermediary here. First, it starts with the prophet, but immediately the intermediary thing is removed, and Allah the Almighty starts talking to the prophet directly, to the people directly. And then he says, I am close. أجيب دعوة الداع. I answer the call of any person who calls me. فليستجيبوا لي. So tell them to answer me, not tell them. فليستجيبوا لي. So let them answer me. وَلْيُؤْمِنُوا بِي, and let them have faith in me, لَعَلَّهُمْ يَرْشُدُونَ, so that they will be guided. This is just 2 points from this beautiful verse. So, my dear brothers and sisters, we have no other ways for salvation other than self-purification. And self-purification can have many different methods to be achieved, but one of the best and most influential and practical ways is to become intimate and close to Allah. And the best way to become intimate to Allah is to talk to him day and night, to be in conversation with Allah in every moment of our lives. That's important. So dua, according to this, is an independent way of self-purification, is an independent way of self-improvement. Dua itself is a school, is a foundational method, is a very principal method of self-purification and self-improvement. But the other point that I wanted to mention, that although I said we can just very simply open our heart and talk to Allah, and we should do that. We should do that in order to keep that beautiful relationship active all the time. But still, it is very good to have, to take advantage of the great heritage that we have. Alhamdulillah, especially because of the blessing that we have, and we follow the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. This is something matchless. You know, we have something in the school of Ahlul Bayt which is unique. Undoubtedly, you cannot find, I have done some research, you cannot find any other denomination in Islam or any other faith traditions that have such a rich heritage, spiritual, devotional texts that we have in the school of Ahlul Bayt. So we really need to take advantage of that. The du'as that we have from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, the du'as that we have from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam, these are unique, these are matchless, these are beautiful, these are miraculously amazing and mind-blowing. Just anyone who starts using and reflecting on the content of these du'as understands that these are different. And these are different from the regular talks that they have had with people, because that is the beautiful times that they have had in conversation with Allah the Almighty. And now that spiritual devotional heritage has remained for us, some of that in the form of prayer books that we have, like Sahifa Sajjadiyya and others. So eventually, this is one of the particular specifications of the school of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam that we really need to have in mind and actually take advantage of it. The school of Ahlul Bayt, as I mentioned, possesses an extremely rich heritage of spirituality built around the concept of dua, because the spirituality itself can have many different ways and methods to be achieved. But spirituality in the school of Ahlul Bayt is mainly based or shaped around the concept of dua, with the most beautiful duas that we have from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. And just we should not forget that according to the Quran, Allah the Almighty says, "My Lord will not pay any attention to you if you do not pray. وَمَا يَعْبَأُ بِكُمْ رَبِّي لَوْلَا دُعَاؤُكُمْ." So if we want to attract the attention of God, we need to talk to him. We need to, and in order to talk to him, we have two ways. One is to use our own words. That's very good. That's necessary. And the other way, which is also very important and necessary to be part of our discussions, part of our conversation with Allah, is to use the words of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and the most beautiful ones can be found, for example, in Sahifa Sajjadiyya or in Munajat of Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, in the Mosque of Kufa and in other places. Just look at the Munajat that he has had. Those 15 beautiful Munajat Khamsa Ashar. Just take a look. I really ask you, I request you to take a look at the content of, for example, Munajat al-Murideen, one of the 15 munajats that you can find them in Mafatih al-Janan and other sources, or you can just find it online. Munajat al-Murideen, Munajat al-Ta'ibin, Munajat al-Muhibbin, and all the other munajats that we have in our heritage. These are amazingly beautiful, and we really need to get the most out of that spirituality that it can bring to us. And my concluding point is that when we pay attention to this concept, and when we take advantage of du'as that have remained for us from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, we will receive a lot of important benefits, but I will mention just 4 of them. So we can say that at least 4 important benefits will be achieved. The first one, the first level, is personal spiritual joy. When you start talking to Allah, especially with those words that have remained from Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam, for example, or with those words from Imam Sajjad alayhi salam in Sahifa Sajjadiyya, or the other du'as that we have, in the first level, you yourself start enjoying. You feel a spiritual joy that is like no other thing in this world. It's beautiful because you are talking to Allah and you are using the words of Ahlul Bayt, which are the most beautiful ways of talking to Allah. So you yourself feel the beauty and feel the joy. And that really makes any, let's say, healthy heart person attracted. I remember that several years ago, I had a classmate who was not a Shia, who was a Sunni friend, but actually a Sunni friend, but he was not familiar with this, had never heard of this actually Sahifa Sajjadiyya, even the name of Sahifa Sajjadiyya, although he was an Arab. But once in a conversation, I talked to him and told him that, have you ever heard this book about? And he said no, and I just talked to him about it and gave him a copy of that book. No, sorry, I didn't give him a copy of that book. I just talked to him about it, and a few weeks later, or maybe a few months later, he sent me a message. And he said, Murtada, thank you for introducing me that book. He was an Arab, he was a Muslim, but he had never heard of Sahifa Sajjadiyya. And he appreciated me for introducing him to that book. And then he said, I never go out of home without having a copy of Sahifa Sajjadiyya in my bag. He says, Sahifa Sajjadiyya is with me wherever I go now. And I just enjoy reading parts of that whenever I can. This is the first benefit that it has for us. It brings a lot of spiritual joy for the person itself. The second feature and the second benefit that it has is that it opens a huge gate of profound divine knowledge to the person. A gate that is open only to the special friends of God. What do I mean by that? The teachings of Ahlul Bayt have reached to us in different ways. One of them is the hadith. For example, most of them are through the hadith. But then the other special way that we have from the teachings of Ahlul Bayt have been manifested in the form of the du'as. But the content of the du'as is different, because that is more special and have been designed for more special people. So it opens a gate of profound knowledge. And this level of knowledge is only available to the special friends of God. This is not for ordinary people who do not think about, who do not reflect on these things. So the content is also very beneficial, is very useful, and it has a lot of profound knowledge and teachings and wisdom that we can find in the dua that we cannot find in the other ordinary hadiths that we have. Because when they were talking to people in the form of hadith, they were actually talking to or maybe answering the questions of other people, and that's important. But when they were talking to Allah, they could say things that they couldn't say in their regular conversations with people. So the level of the knowledge that you can find, the level of wisdom that you can find in the du'as is much greater than the level of the wisdom that you can find in other forms of the tradition that we have. And the third benefit of that is that the love, this is also important, the love of the person who has said this word will grow up in our hearts. This is an indirect benefit. When you start, I explain it this way, when you start reciting Dua al-Kumayl, for example, or Munajat Sha'baniyya, when you start, these are two other examples of the beautiful du'as that we have. When you start recitation of Dua Kumayl every Thursday night, you know that these beautiful, amazing words have been said by Imam Ali alayhi salam. Indirectly, there will be a relationship with us and the person who said those words, i.e. Imam Ali alayhi salam. And therefore, the love of Imam Ali alayhi salam will grow higher in our heart. And what is better than this? When we recite the words of Imam Sajjad alayhi salam in Sahifa Sajjadiyya, indirectly, we know that there is a type of humbleness, there is a type of love that is shaped in our heart about the person who made these words. So indirectly, we start loving that person more and more. This is this is one of the best ways to get to get a better relationship with Ahlul Bayt themselves through their own words in conversation with Allah. Isn't it beautiful? We talk to Allah, we use the words of Ahlul Bayt, so we directly get closer to Allah, and directly or indirectly, we also get closer to those people who made those words, I mean Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam, and we start loving them more and more. This is the third important benefit of using du'as of Ahlul Bayt, and I mean every day and night we should just use them and take advantage of them. And the fourth and the last benefit that I wanted to mention is what I said at the beginning of my lecture. The most important point is that's the main goal of actually these du'as and conversation, is that it makes us connected to the source of spirituality and love and light and guidance and everything. I mean God. It makes us connected to the God in the most beautiful way, and eventually therefore it makes us closer to Him. When we get connected to Him, we are closer to Him, and we achieve intimacy with Allah the Almighty. And the result of intimacy with Allah the Almighty is knowledge of God. And the result of having proper knowledge about Allah the Almighty is removing all the negative traits from one's soul. And that is the meaning of self-purification. That was the actually synopsis of everything that I wanted to say, according to what I mentioned at the beginning of my talk about the statement from the late Ayatollah Bahjat. And this is why we come to know that why Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam says, أحب الأعمال إلى الله تعالى في الأرض الدعاء. The most beloved work, the most beloved deeds before Allah the Almighty on the face of the earth is dua, is prayer. This is what Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali alayhi salam says. So if we have the time and opportunity to take advantage of the words of Ahlul Bayt, let's do it. And let's have some part of our time taking advantage of the beautiful words of Ahlul Bayt in the form of du'as, in munajat, munajat sha'baniya, or different other munajat that we have, especially in this holy month, and also sahifa sajjadiyya, which must be with us day and night. May Allah the Almighty help all of us, inshallah, get the most out of these amazing, let's say, spiritual heritage that we have. And may Allah the Almighty accept all of our deeds and efforts in this holy month. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.